Hello and welcome to this short video on guidance and advice for staff working with young children. My name's Roisin Salt and I'm a wellbeing practitioner at Psychology Associates. So why does it matter? Why is it important to understand the impact of domestic abuse on young children? Well, firstly, we know it's widespread. We know that at least 1 in 5 children have been exposed to domestic abuse. So the chances are that you will be or have already worked with children who have been impacted by domestic abuse. And we know that the impact of domestic abuse, especially during early years, can have a real impact on healthy brain development. Because in the early years of our life, our brain is working extremely hard to form new brain cells, new connections and circuits within the brain. And it is these circuits that help key areas of our brains communicate together. For example, areas associated with language or motor skills or emotion or rational thinking and behaviour control. We need these circuits to help all of those key areas communicate with one another. And these different areas of the brain are interconnected, and you can't have one without the support of another. For example, you can't have motor skills without the support of memory. So that's why these connections and circuits between the different areas of the brain are so important. It's a bit like building a house. Everything is connected and needed to ensure that that house is safe and sound for many years to come. And what comes first when building a house is its foundations. And it's the foundations that begin to form during early years. But when a child is subjected to domestic abuse, especially ongoing or long-term abuse, it can cause the brain and body to be in a constant stress response or threat state. And whilst in this state, where the brain is flooded with stress hormones such as cortisol, it makes it incredibly challenging to form connections or circuits within the brain to connect with other areas of the brain, because that child is in a constant state of threat. They are in their emotional brain, their amygdala is switched on, and they are unable in that moment to connect to other areas of the brain, for example, to connect with rational, more higher level thinking and behaviour control. And as you can imagine, this has an impact on learning, relationships, resilience, well-being, and that's physical and mental well-being. And those that impact is lifelong. However, you can have a positive impact on a child's life. What we know is that even just having one key person, key adult in a child's life can make such a dramatic and positive impact. So what can you do to help? Well, firstly, it's really important that you have good communication and information sharing, whether that's with members of the team or parents or caregivers. And having those honest and open conversations with the family will definitely encourage good and healthy relationships between nursery and home. Of course, there will be moments where you feel unsure or uncertain about what to do. And it's okay in those moments to seek advice and support, whether that's from a team member or a designated safeguarding lead, or even contacting the Operation Encompass Teachers Helpline. Another thing that's important to say here is that it is essential that you know your safeguarding responsibilities, that you're familiar with the processes, the designated safeguarding lead or the appropriate person to contact, and also that you are up to date with your safeguarding policy. We also know that early intervention and therapeutic support are key. However, there is so much that you can do within the nursery to offer support to the child. So just having that one key adult or person that the child feels safe and who they have a connection with really does make a difference. Lastly, it's really, really essential that you look after yourself. The job that you do at times can be really, really challenging. So it is so important that you give yourself the time and space to reflect upon the things that you might be finding particularly challenging, but also to talk through any concerns, fears that you might have. It's okay to not always know the answer or to feel unsure about what to do. Just be kind to yourself. Okay, so moving on to some more practical strategies in supporting a child. Well, firstly, I think it's really important to think about the relationship that you have with that family and to think of ways to try and encourage a positive and good relationship with the family where communication feels easy and clear and open. So using things like check-in calls or messages or even just meeting at the start and the end of the day, so during drop-off and pick-up time, just having a couple of minutes to check in and see how the family are doing. And having this open communication means that it will be far easier to support the child both at home and at nursery. And you can also keep that communication open with the child. So if there's a break or they're absent from nursery, doing things like video calls or sending pictures, postcards, things like that, just so the child still feels very much a part of nursery and feels like they have that connection and link to nursery. When a child is coming in for the day, sometimes it's helpful to have a bit of a meet and greet. And again, this is something that you could discuss with the family about having a key person who can meet with the child when they come into nursery. And they might need a bit of a settling in period here. So especially if there's been some absence from nursery, for them to have a period of time after they've had the meet and greet to just get their bearings and to settle in to nursery, whether that's having some fruit in the morning with a drink, just having some quiet time and perhaps changing and adapting the pace of the day just to allow for the child to settle in to the routine. And routine's really important here, and having not just a consistent routine, but a familiar routine. And things such as timetables are really, really helpful in helping a child remember that routine, but also to have a bit of predictability. To know what's coming, especially if they're feeling quite anxious. So having a timetable, that visual cue, and having a set, familiar routine will all be really, really helpful in creating a sense of safety and predictability for that child. Now, I mentioned earlier about brain development. And what we know about younger children is that they haven't quite mastered the ability to articulate some of their big feelings and emotions. So what you see is emotions being expressed in a very physical, behavioural way. Um, so in terms of having conversations with children about their feelings, or trying to understand some of what might be going on for them in their emotional world, a lot of that can be seen in play. So spending time and playing with a child, might give you some insight into some of what might be going on for them internally, but also it allows for some really lovely nurture, quality time and connection with another person. Another important thing to consider is co-regulation. So just moving on from what we talked about children not really having the language to be able to express some of their emotions. They need you to help them when they are feeling big feelings. They need the support of trusted adults around them to help co-regulate. And you can do that just by naming what you're seeing, naming some of those big feelings, using your voice. Lots of sing-song, storytelling voices are really helpful in co-regulating with that child. So nursery rhymes can be quite useful. It's also important to think about some of the senses and how they can help with regulation. So what they can see, what they can feel, whether that's being wrapped up in a fluffy blanket and being rocked, what they can taste. So certain foods can be quite regulating, such as crunchy apples and carrots, or ice lollies. What they can smell, so there might be that they have an object or a handkerchief from home that smells of something that is a real comfort to them, and what they can hear. So again, just going back to music, thinking about the tone of your voice and helping that child to calm just by using your sing-songy voice and best storytelling voice. Sometimes it's also worth thinking about having a transitional object. So that's something that is special and important to that child that they can bring from home with them into nursery. So something that will provide comfort, whether that's a teddy or a blanket or something that has got their mother's perfume on, something that provides real comfort. And lastly, just in terms of practical support, it might be helpful to think about onward referrals. So thinking about wider systems and services that are available that could support not just the child, but the family. So that concludes our short video today. I just wanted to draw your attention to some of the resources here on the last slide. Please do contact the Operation Encompass Teachers Helpline if you do have any queries or are wanting to seek advice and support about how best to support the children that you're working with. Thank you for listening.